Metroid Other M. I'm sure those words can spark a sense of hatred in your heart, especially if you're a Metroid fan. But I would like to present a counter opinion. Maybe because it was my first Metroid game, but I feel like Metroid Other M gets more crap than it really deserves, with its shortcomings being drastically over-exaggerated. I think a huge issue that this game has is the fan base. A lot of fans will take other fans at their word so much these days, and I find it funny how in conversation, a good portion of the time, some of the loudest voices in the discussion had never even played the game, but rather they were just echoing what someone else had said. This caused me to want to start my own echo chamber of sorts, so let's get talking about how this game was not half as bad as people say. But I'm sure you're going to want me to expand on each of my points, so let's get into it. I think it's fair to start where most everyone starts. Metroid Other M obviously wanted to be a story-based game. The frequent cutscenes are evidence of that. And boy did this game love its cutscenes. A few issues with them are definitely over-exaggerated, such as Samus's monotone voice. But see, the issue is we'd never heard Samus actually speak full sentences outside of Brawl. So to claim it was out of character for her to have a monotone voice makes no sense, especially with the context of the cutscenes being a retelling of the events of the story. Think back to a time when a hardened warrior has retold something. The tone tends to hang in a monotone range, out of some kind of reverent respect. And when she speaks to others actively, that tone is backed up, with Samus continuing to remain monotone. This can be seen as a problem, but I'd argue it's consistent with the heavy baggage Samus carries. Her parents were murdered, she was raised by aliens who couldn't relate to her, and she'd gone on multiple adventures at this point that could only be described as nothing short of terrifying. Especially as she's a solitary fighter. She's never had consistent squad mates. I would use this all as a reason for her to have a monotone voice, but we can also back it up with the future games in Metroid Dread. We actually hear the Chozo speak for the first time in this game, and they use a familiar monotone voice. Samus shares that voice when she actually speaks back to them in Chozo, despite making a major promise to Quiet Rogue to kill Ravenbeak and finish the fight. As we know, humans don't actually speak their family's accent, but rather pick up on the culture and accent of where they were raised. This can fully explain Samus' monotone voice. This game was also written in Japan, where soft-spoken silent heroes are more revered and respected. So Samus being a hardened hero would also give her a monotone voice, and have her not exaggerate things. Before anyone comments, "What Western audiences?" we should remember that tons of monotone heroes are widely loved and respected in anime, such as Psyche Kozuo, Saitama, and Rei from Neon Genesis Evangelion. In localization to change a character's personality is widely disrespected in anime. Why should it be any different for Samus? I think we should move on to Adam. This is probably the biggest point of contention, where the game locks certain abilities behind authorization. And yes, this could have been done in a much better way, but it shouldn't stop you from playing this amazing game. Adam is blamed with barring you from abilities you definitely should have access to. But there's something most forget. A lot of people complain about the wave beam section, the grapple beam section, and the Variasuit section. However, they forget Adam isn't giving you his exclusive attention. He's paying attention to his whole squad, investigating which traitor is killing everyone, and last but not least, trying to find out what's going on in the facility. Samus could almost be an afterthought to him, as she randomly joined in due to a distress call. So the fact he isn't always paying attention to Samus, allowing her to use the abilities she needs exactly when she needs them, is definitely an overreaction, and the plot supports this lack of attention. Now, I'm not discounting the fact that Samus can and should have simply gone against his orders, but she's following them out of respect for Adam and his command over the mission, which shows that she really does care for Adam. The Ptsd Scene. This is a notorious scene in Metroid Other M. However, once again, I see it as a little bit over-exaggerated. As we know, Ridley is the leader of the space pirates and killed Samus' parents directly. Now, when we look at the timeline, we can see Samus has tried her best to defeat Ridley, but it almost took her 6 games in the timeline to finally kill him, when she finally killed him in Super Metroid. Now she's on a secret ship in the middle of nowhere, and is finding out the Federation she's trusted for years isn't the most trustworthy. But then, she walks into a room and it's him. It's Ridley. The memories of their mortal combat are mixed with the terrible acts he's done to her, and are all shaken in a massive cocktail shaker of the backstabbery from the Federation. Now realizing that they made him and the space pirates, they betrayed her. Again, to those who say this is out of character for Samus, I'd like to once again present some contrary evidence. This is the first time we've ever seen Samus voice acted and truly characterized. If we look back at the 2D games, as Ridley comes into view, Samus stands completely still as she does in this cutscenes. We don't have control over Samus until we're forced to start fighting. As much as this is a weak argument, we don't know what's running through Samus's head as we encounter Ridley again and again. Now, I'm not trying to toss up cutscenes in a game on limited hardware as emotion. But you get my point. Anyways, Anthony, the best character, saves Samus from getting dunked on and is killed, snapping Samus back into reality to face Ridley in one of the best boss fights the series has ever featured. I think that's a good segue to the gameplay portion. Gameplay is a very contested area of Metroid Other M. Some think it's great and a strong aspect of the game. Most think it's convoluted and weak. I'm gonna go over every point of contention in the fan base that I know of. If I've missed anything, let me know in the comments, and I can probably make a good argument. However, let's go over the ones I have prepared. 8 directional movement. Many complain about the mere 8 directions you get to move in, which is understandable as it can increase the challenge of combat. However, it also has a plus side. It makes platforming much easier than in some of the 2D games, as the areas are built for this gameplay style, and with the speed and movement options Samus has, in my opinion, 8 directional movement makes using certain tools like the speed booster and wall jumping leagues easier, and in terms of areas with a requirement of minimal mistakes, such as a particular moment where you need to dodge a falling elevator, the margin of error is highly reduced with the limited freedom. Aside from that, it makes the game feel like a true evolution of the original concept in Metroids 1 through 4, by taking the gameplay of the 2D games and putting it in a 3D space. Aside from that, Samus will auto-lock onto the nearest enemy, and while it's not the most reliable lock-on system in gaming, it's far more reliable than most say. During my playthrough, I had very few issues with the auto-lock-on, and those issues were when multiple enemies were bouncing back and forth between getting close and far from Samus. Sense Move. Sense Move is a function that basically acts as a dodge for Samus and lets her instantly charge her beam cannon. Going on its function, it actually seems to be an early concept for the parry mechanic introduced in Samus Returns, that would see continued use in Dread, both of which instantly charge your arm cannon's next shot. It is complained that the further you get in the game, the more you end up leaning on this mechanic. However, I would say if you don't like it, just don't use it. It doesn't activate unless you're standing still initially, so if you keep on the move, you won't use Sense Move. Haha, funny puns. It's the same argument people have been using for the parry mechanic. Aside from that, it does become more frequently used, which I would argue, much like the parry mechanic, is a good thing. This is a feature that makes obliterating bosses a fun and action-packed experience, and due to the lack of health pickups in Other M, it can decrease the difficulty of getting chipped to death by smaller enemies in the late game. Missiles. The feature of using a missile by turning your Wii Remote on its side in a Metroid Prime 3 style is a little frustrating. And in this argument, I can actually agree with. Mostly. As I think parts where your view was restricted to just the first-person view, and the gameplay was made to adapt for that, actually worked pretty well, such as the adolescent Ridley Fight. It works really well, mostly since the game reduces the frequency of the attack patterns and holds you still to adapt for the lack of movement. You can also use Sense Move during normal gameplay, but it can really mess up your view. I think good examples in general are the second form Ridley Fight and the Space Pirate Nest Fight. Now, I think I've done most of the defending. I think I'm down to start expressing what the game did right. Number 1, Adam. Even though I argued earlier about Adam's problems, I actually think Adam was pretty well written. In this game we learn a lot about Adam and how much he means to Samus. We also see how he reciprocates those feelings, running to save Samus in the post-game cutscenes. He really does care for Samus. The Ridley Fight. This is simply the best Ridley Fight in the series, and I will have no one tell me otherwise. It's an amazing setup to a blacked out boss fight room, followed by the most tense and awesome Ridley theme the series has ever seen. It's almost universally liked, and the music is loved by many fans. Graphics. Although some would say they aged poorly for some odd reason, Metroid Other M has stunning graphics for the Wii. Nintendo is always great at making games look amazing despite their console limitations, but this time, Nintendo and Team Ninja 100% went above and beyond. These are PC caliber graphics on the Wii. Here, I'll show you. BioShock 2 came out on the same year Metroid Other M came out, but it was on PC. These graphics look basically identical, and honestly, I think that's just a testament to how good the graphics are on Metroid Other M. It actually utilizes almost all of its disc's available data. It's honestly hilarious to see how much cutting they had to do to the cutscenes just to fit the whole game on the disc. And other than that, the usage of color in this game is amazing. They used colorful graphics in an age where the most common way to hide poor quality was to use a muddy color palette. Other M throws this strategy out of the window and brightens up the color palette, makes all the environments look beautiful. This causes the graphics to age like a fine wine. Samus's model looks so amazing, as do the other Federation soldiers. And honestly, the only graphical issue I can think of tends to be the boss textures. They received a little bit less love, as you can see with the opening boss. But it's just a small issue in a massively beautiful game, especially for the time of 2010. Voice acting. Although this might spark some fun conversations in the comments, the voice acting for this game is honestly amazing. Samus is well acted, especially considering this was her actress's first main role. The other voices hit well as well. Another discrepancy in people's arguments is that people say this doesn't sound like Samus, despite this being her first time ever being fully voice acted in a mainline title, being voice acted in Brawl with a slightly deeper voice. It just doesn't make sense to me why people would think this doesn't sound like Samus when this is the first time we've ever fully heard Samus. In conclusion, my opinion of Metroid Other M is that it's definitely underrated. It gets way more hate than it deserves and has a lot of amazing features, graphics, and gameplay elements that never get mentioned in conversation. If anyone has ever told you to not even try this game out, I'd recommend you don't listen to them. It's honestly a game that you need to try out before you make any judgments about it. And don't get me wrong, those judgments can be negative, but I think it's best to have your own opinion rather than just go with whatever everyone else says. If you take anything away from this video, it's that I really want you to try this game out. It's usually found pretty cheap because of how the community sees it, and honestly, it's definitely worth the couple bucks it'll take to purchase it. Please, please do try Metroid Other M out. It's a great game. And yeah, there's my rant on Metroid Other M. If you liked this video, please give me a like. If you didn't like it, leave me a comment. Tell me what I said wrong, and we can have a discussion in the comments. I'm really trying to grow my channel, so if you wouldn't mind dropping a sub, whether you agreed or disagreed with me, I'd really love you. Seriously, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs so I can get a creator code, stuff like that going. Really turn my channel into a career, I hope, someday. But yeah, thank you for listening to my ramblings, and I really hope that you pulled something out of this video. Maybe you think of the game a little bit less negatively. But yeah, drop a like, drop a sub, and I'll see you later. Post-credits scene, I guess. I just watched the Game Explained video while collecting more research for this vid. He thought that the portrayal of Samus in Other M was sexist because she needed a man to save her during the Ridley fight. I'm sorry, who else was going to save Samus? Freaking Mrs. Claus? Freaking Captain Marvel? She's the only woman with a weapon in the entire station. And get this later. When Adam shoots her in the back with the ice beam to stop her from going into Sector Z, I think it is, the sector with the Metroids, he also calls that, oh, she's in a submissive position. How sexist. Dude, Adam knows how powerful Samus is. He knows he has to stop her from going into
sector with the Metroids. He can't just ask her to stop. He knows how stubborn she is. She will go in anyway. He has to put her in a position where she cannot physically go in. Secondly, he's not dominating her. He's being a caring person, and sometimes you have to hurt the people you love to keep them from hurting themselves. As weird as that is to say. Game Explain's opinion is the least based I have ever heard. The frick? It doesn't even make sense.